you. So good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for your introduction. So my name, yeah, as you already know, it's Aleksandra Bajde. I'm RECAS Fellow. I'm also interdisciplinary researcher and cultural manager, and I'm very happy to be hosting today's conversation. Today's seminar, Creative Ecologies and Sonic Future, is connected to my fellowship research on how young cultural practitioners in Southeast Europe. Particularly, I'm focusing on Serbia and Slovenia, so how they imagine and enact ecological as well as democratic future through artistic practice. So over the past decade, we witnessed a growing movement at the intersection of art, culture, ecology, and also sustainability, one that has become increasingly embedded in culture policy, funding frameworks, and artistic production. At the EU level, such as European Commission's cultural policy frameworks, the Creative Europe program, and the new European Bauhaus under the European Green Deal reflect this shift. So ecology is no longer treated as an external theme, but as a guiding framework shaping funding criteria, institutional strategies, and public discourse. So as a result, ecological awareness and also sustainability production models have become increasingly visible, in some contexts even expected, within contemporary artistic practice and institutional context. So these broader European policy environments also shape directly in Slovenia and also more indirectly in Serbia the conditions under which artists operate, influencing funding structures, institutional expectations, and thematic priority. So, as art doesn't exist in isolation, it is a social practice that reflects, negotiates, and sometimes even challenges the conditions shaping contemporary society. So, that particularly interests me in what motivates also today's conversation is how artists themselves relate to this shift. So is ecology experienced as a form of pressure or funding requirement or a thematic trend? Or is it understood also as a meaningful space to contribution where artistic practice can engage with sustainability in broader, more relational ways? So beyond narrow environmental messaging. So one issue that emerges strongly in my research is the gap between policy frameworks and also artistic practice. Policy tends to operate through target strategy, measurable outcomes, and defined objectives. Artistic practice, by contrast, often engages in ecological questions in more processual, relational, and sometimes also ambiguous ways. So artists are frequently invited into sustainability agendas as performers or communicators, but far less often as thinkers or co-creators in shaping what sustainability itself might mean. So when we speak about art, creativity, and then also about policy, they can feel like different worlds. We often speak different languages, but we also have, in a way, parallel conversations. So we want socially conscious artists, we want more equitable and also sustainable communities, but the infrastructures that connect these aspirations are not always aligned. So one of my aims in this research is to explore how we might begin to bridge this gap, to better connect policy frameworks and artistic practice so they can inform and strengthen one another, and to create more meaningful dialogue between artists and policymakers. So I like to think of the role of artists not only as raising awareness, but also creating spaces where complexity can be held, where uncertainty, contradiction, and alternative ways of relating to the world can be explored. This also means approaching sustainability not only in ecological and environmental terms, but as questions of care, temporality, materiality, precarity, and collective life. dimensions that are often deeply embedded in artistic processes. So artists can help us navigate crises not only by offering fixed solutions, but by really expanding what we are able to perceive, feel, and imagine together. So, really, to help us guide through these processes by using their creativity and imagination to envision possible futures. So, with this perspective in mind, I'm very pleased to welcome Sara Stevanović, composer and interdisciplinary artist. Her work spans contemporary composition, multimedia performance, and experimental music theater. And her artistic practice engages with social constructs, aesthetics of absurdity, and reflection on contemporary life through sound, performance, and multimedia forms. She holds a degree in musicology and composition, has presented her work at numerous international festivals and with ensembles across Europe, and currently lives and works in Linz in Austria. She's also the chairwoman of the International Society for Contemporary Music in Upper Austria. So, Sara, I'd like to begin with a broader question. How do you see the role of artists today in relation to ecology and sustainability?
Yeah, well, thank you for the question, but also thank you for having me. I'm very happy to be here and to talk about this topic. So regarding your question, so for my personal practice, I often like to quote Trond Reinholdsen, who is a Norwegian composer who also deals with these topics a lot in his own way. And in his critical reflection for his PhD work, he wrote that art can be best defined negatively, so it is the opposite of confirming the status quo of the situation. And I strongly agree with him on this, and that is also what I like to use as a kind of a guiding line for my own work. I also feel that art has a way and has also kind of a license to cut through these established systems and also to challenge the coordinates in which it functions and the coordinates in which we function. Speaking broadly about the art in general and not my artistical practice, I would say that I wouldn't call it an expectation, because I also feel that it is a slippery road to have expectation in a world where we want to also have artistic freedom. I think that having these expectations is also something that can have impact on interpretation as well and how we see the art world, which is, and I also feel that the goal of art in general, all art disciplines, is to, as you also said now in your introduction, is to help us kind of cope with the world and cope with life in general. And I feel that that can have many different colors, many different include many different coping mechanisms, and that we should also embrace this kind of diversity in art. Yeah.
And what do you see the most meaningful contribution or artistic practice in the field? I mean, I know that's quite a,
Yeah.
question, but still, if you can perhaps have a thought on that.
I think that for me, that would be definitely coming out of what is traditionally or classically considered a classical or an art space. And I think that dealing with topics like this brings artists out and engages them to actually communicate with people. This sounds absurd, but it is actually true. Like coming out of our ateliers, coming out of our music studios, theater halls, whatever the place is, but coming out and actually going into dialogue.
Right. In your practice, in what ways, or if any, do ecological and environmental concerns shape how you work?
Yeah, well, since a couple of years, actually, it absolutely shapes everything I do, because I kind of completely, well, almost completely switched my focus to these kind of topics. So the two biggest works that I've done in the recent years. One is called #What's in My Trash, and the other one is called I Thought God Can Be Found in the Danube. So basically, the both titles kind of also reveal the topics that I managed to, or also chose to deal with here. So the first project, #What's in My Trash, obviously I was researching a lot waste and waste disposal, and not only theoretically, but I also used the waste as a material. So for my residency at the Academy of Arts in Berlin, I collected the trash, the waste that I actually produced just by living at the academy for 3 months, and collected this waste. And also because it wasn't enough, I also collected the waste of my neighbors at the academy and used these waste to produce the figures for my installation for the academy. I also, as you said, since I also do a lot of actually I do primarily interdisciplinary work, I also create my own visuals. I work with video a lot. And for both of these projects, actually, I did also video documentation. That meant for me, again, exactly what I said, going out of my residency spaces, going out to the street. For my waste project, I was going around and filming waste, filming trash bins, and going to also waste disposal sites, which for me was also the most interesting part of this project, because obviously if you do video documentation, you don't get private sessions at a video disposal as at a waste disposal site, but you go there and people are just normally doing their work and people come and dispose of their waste. So you actually come into dialogue, because obviously when people come to these spaces, they don't necessarily expect someone to be there with a video camera or a microphone. So it's also a very good conversation starter. So yes, and the second project that I did was about the Danube. I did the part 1 last year, and this year I'm working on part 2, so it's an ongoing project. And for that one, actually, I also had a collaboration with the International Commission for the Protection of the Danube, which is based in Vienna, which was also super interesting for me, working also with scientific data, because they do like a every 6 years they do research of the quality of Danube water, and I actually worked with the scientific data of these researches.
Okay. May I ask you to your first project? So trash was also used as a sonic, I mean, like also as material, or just more visual material?
Both.
Okay.
So it is in a physical space because it's an installation. So the trash is actually also, the waste I collected is also there. I created figures from them that are in the exhibition room, but I also use them to create sonic material.
Very interesting. And when you think about the future, what kinds of ecological and social imaginaries emerge through your work? I mean, are these futures hopeful, fragile, ambiguous, or contested? Or do you imagine futures more as a collective processes or individual gestures and experiments?
Yeah, so actually in my work, I try very hard not to talk about the future. This has a very practical reason, actually, because I feel that people or we as humans find it very difficult to connect something that lies in the future, because it's often very abstract, but also because I feel that we often lack referential values to future. And even in movies that I'm a big fan of, often things that are represented as that have a kind of a futuristic aspect, it's either seen as kind of utopian or dystopian, but never as something real. So what I like to do is focus on the past because I feel that through the memories and experiences, it has a more it is easier for us to connect to that and to also kind of have an emotional response to that. And the presence, which is obviously also through these video documentations that I do, it is obviously something that is present. But if I personally would have to talk about future, then I would probably use a word like fragile. Yeah.
Oh, why fragile? Because of the current situation, or I mean, basically, or
Yeah. Yeah, I would say so. Yes.
yeah, I understand that. So, but when you think about also ecology and sustainability today in a wider, so social and political sense, what kinds of democratic imaginaries do you see emerging or perhaps missing?
Yeah. Well, I actually could only think of one that is missing. No, but I think there's enough time to talk about this one that for me is very important and that I would like to kind of underline, which is also I was thinking a lot about this because obviously for all these projects that I do on topic of ecology and sustainability, I do a lot of research. And I often ended up thinking that we are missing some sort of collective responsibility.
Mm.
Um, because for many of these researches that I did, no matter if it's about waste or if it's about the Danube, the quality of water in Europe, I always felt that many of these problems have very focused or well, less or more focused domestic solutions. But there is very little cross-border collaboration on these projects. And it is also the absurdity, because you also said that I use a lot of absurd elements in my work, and that is true. One of these absurd elements was also in the piece about the Danube, was also the fact that I find it very absurd that people and institutions, organizations, but also countries as whole still kind of try to find a black hole in the system, or like to trick the system, not realizing that there is no way of tricking this system because it's just coming back one way or another. Um, so in this project for the Danube, for example, you know, the Danube flows through 10 different countries, and if we collect all the tributaries and the whole Danube basin, it's 19 countries in general. So altogether, it's one of the most international river systems in the world. And when I looked at the restoration policies of for the Danube in different countries, the policies were mostly like pushing the physical trash over the border, so it's not your problem anymore. Without realizing that the deeper problem, it doesn't matter where the physical trash is. No, if it's up the stream or down the stream, the problem, the coexisting problem is still there. So I would say the most missing thing for me is exactly that. So the collective responsibility and not trying to kind of, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And do you feel that also current democratic frameworks are capable of responding to ecological challenges, or do they seem insufficient?
I don't want to seem too pessimistic here. I would say yes and no. Yeah, I think it can be better.
Mm, yeah.
Yeah.
And what kinds of institutional, financial, or also practical conditions shape your ability to work today?
Well, I have a lot of institutional support, and I'm very grateful for that. But I also feel that artistic freedom is the second one, and is as important as the first one. And I also have to again underline that, in my opinion, these two have to go hand in hand and without compromises. And I think that is very important to underline in today's world, in today's times.
Okay, but you're basically there's I mean project-based funding you receive,
Yeah.
right? And okay. And do you feel like that in, I mean, about maybe you can also reflect a bit on precarity, because artistic work, it's usually very much connected to, you know, precarious work. I mean, as a precarious work, I mean, do you feel that that's kind of, I mean, true? I mean, I know in Austria it's maybe a bit different than probably would be back in Serbia. But yeah, how do you feel as an artist in
What
regard
do you
to
mean?
how do you how I mean, like, as you know, your most of your work, it's project based, so there is the whole, it's, I mean, it's very fragile profession in a way. And so because you're constant, you know, also in terms of security, so there's a precariousness embedded. And how do you experience this? Whether you experience it, you know, I mean, because different EU countries, I think, have different support
Yeah.
for artistic work. I mean, I know that Austria, I would say I mean, Austria has quite a good funding support.
Mhm.
On one hand, this thematics, I mean, on sustainability are increasing. On the other hand, the budgets are not really increasing, you know, the budgets for
Yeah.
culture. So, and how do you see if yourself as an artist in this, I mean, relation?
Yeah. Well, I think there is a lot of pressure, obviously, because there is no security in what we do. But I feel that some people also kind of find the energy in this pressure, and this is also what kind of drives them to work harder. Um, Not me, but yes, I feel that you, as an artist, also have to learn to work under pressure and kind of, yeah, I mean, kind of also deal with it. And big part of it is also very good planning, I would say, and very like planning in far future, which can help. Yeah,
Yeah, and also networks, of course, they also
networks. Yeah,
help a lot. Yeah.
yeah,
And you lived in Austria, also in Germany,
yeah.
so lived and worked in different culture contexts. Are there aspects of this cultural ecosystem that you find inspiring and that that might resonate with or be relevant for the also artistic scene in Serbia
Yeah.
and vice versa? I don't know if yeah, I'm just exploring the Serbian, I mean, our cultural scene and also policy and everything. So.
Yeah, well, I would say that the easy answer is funding structures, because obviously there is much more of that here in Austria, and it's better regulated. But it's also a bit tricky to talk about that, because I feel that um, in Serbia, we have a big problem with corruption, and it's like a worm that's kind of slowly eating everything around us. And of course, it did not skip cultural institutions and cultural ministry. So I feel that the funds that were there a couple of years ago are now also gone. And this also directly influences who gets the funds and also what kind of art is being created nowadays. Um, so this has a kind of like another side to it, which I feel that a lot of people here in Western Europe, where I am now based, use as a kind of a good comparison, which is saying that in Serbia there are still a lot of there is a lot of self-organized art or self-organized artistic projects. That is obviously true, but I also feel that that comes not as a kind of goal. It comes just from the need, because often there is no other solution. And of course, these self-organized artistic projects give a lot of freedom, obviously, because it is a kind of a win situation where one can do what one wants. But also, I feel that it is not a sustainable or a long-term solution, and it also is very consuming for everyone who is actually involved in it artistically, or for the cultural workers. There was this situation in autumn, in October, November, with Milo Rau, with the theater director, who was, as you maybe have heard about this. That's actually a great example of what is happening for the Bitev Festival, who basically the board of the Bitter Festival or uninvited this theater director Milo Rau with his production in Belgrade. And they also kind of finished the mandate of the artistic direction of the festival because they programmed this piece. And what happened was that a month later, people of the festival self-organized. They created a festival called Nebitev, so No Bitev, which is a completely self-organized festival, and they managed to bring Milorad to Belgrade to do the production completely self-organized. So this is a great example, but also for me, it's also heartbreaking because it's not, this is again something that comes as a rebellion, and it's great that there is this force, but also that's not how it's supposed to be. And I wish that I wish that there was no need to do this, So.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing that I want to mention is also that this is also kind of not directly connected to these cultural contexts, but also it is more indirectly. Because I left Serbia when I was 18, so after high school, I went to musical high school in Belgrade, and I was good at it. And so basically in my high school for 4 years, I had like subjects like harmony, counterpoint, and how to successfully leave Serbia and never come back. So I was basically taught by my teachers in musical high school how to leave and how to have a professional career abroad. Which I'm very grateful for because I managed to do it. And of course, I have a lot of love for my teachers who did that. But also I feel like, again, I wish that there was really no need for that. And I have all of my friends from high school we follow each other on social media, and we are all around the world, and we are all very successful, again, coming from the school of how to do arts abroad and how to be a good artist abroad, musician in this way, in this sense. So I also feel that this is also a very big problem when it comes to the cultural context in Serbia as well, which is teaching kids that there is no future.
Oh, wow.
Sorry, that's my dog.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, really, for all these insights. And now I'm kind of already going towards the end. I mean, last question. So based on your experience, how could cultural policy and funding framework better support artistic practices that engage with ecological or sustainability and also social challenges? I think you can just, as you want, like in general, or you also in relation to Serbia, or, as you like to frame it.
Yeah, I think that because you also mentioned this, like not giving any topical or like topic inputs, I think that this is very important. What I wish for, but I also have to say both of these projects that I did, actually all 3 projects, either if it's Danube or the waste one, I never got the funding that was specifically for any ecological or sustainability reasons. This was just like one was a fellowship, and the other one was just a normal commission for me. It was me who chose to do these topics, so I'm actually not really sure how these kind of fundings work. I just have to say that here very clearly. But what I wished for is that if these calls could actually support artists doing field research, or also, I would say field research, which doesn't necessarily also have to be defined in what kind of format this has to be. But for example, for me, as I said, and for my waste project, one of the most important factors was actually going out to these waste management sites and actually just talking to people. And I feel like that day I've reached at least 50 people and talked to them about trash. And at the end of the day, one lady asked me if I'm a trash expert, and I was so happy. So these kind of talks, it can be also interview, but also just getting into dialogue with people. And the second thing that also for me would be really important, and I would also appreciate it as an artist who deals with these kind of topics, is also having the institutional support to collaborate with organizations, but also with researchers and also with scientific whatsoever that the format is, that can actually help me in my research. Because for all the projects that I've done so far, I always had to start this connection myself. So I would actually write to, for example, in this case, the the Commission for the Protection of the Danube. And to be honest, people, especially scientists, are often very skeptical about working with artists because, especially if they don't have experience, they think we're just some crazy people. So often they don't respond, or sometimes they do, but it's very kind of like a skeptical relationship. So sometimes they will just send us data and then we can do with them whatever we want. But it's also sometimes that I can find data online. So what I actually would like to have from these organizations is more like a practical collaboration. And I also feel that the institutions often don't see that we actually also have something to offer to them. And I think that often this can also have very nice formats for both of us, where artists can also do reach out activities with researchers, and can also that can be also profitable for them in some way. And
Sure.
this
Yeah, so
often
rich research and also then artistic practice.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I could agree on that. So totally. Is there anything else, or like last piece of advice that you would give to policymakers, or that's already what you said? I mean, we could say that. Is there anything you would like to add? Or like, is there anything else you think is important for understanding how contemporary artistic practice and cultural work also more broadly can contribute to ecological, cultural, or democratic futures today, especially from the perspective of emerging generations?
Yes, well, for policymakers, I think that maybe they should also look at more art, and that would also maybe help realize that also art is often not measurable by how do you say
Qualitative, yes.
no, but like percentage
Yeah.
because I also feel that often I have to kind of put my result in percentage, like how many people I reached, and how many, and like what is it, and it's very difficult because it's not very as black and white. And maybe if they would go out more and see artworks, maybe they would realize how it works in reality.
Yeah, or from qualitative perspective, and not being focused so much on key performance indicators and all statistics, and as you mentioned. So thank you so much for your
Thank
input.
you.
And now I invite everyone else, if you have any questions for Sarah. So we are open to yes.
Is there a lineup? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hi,
Yeah,
Sarah.
go ahead, René. Yeah.
Thank you so much. This was a really fascinating insight in the little world of art and activism coming together. I love your transnational life and experience, and maybe I have a little bit of a practical question. You're talking about the Danube, and it just made me think of these rivers that do not care about borders, do not care about the cultural fields, about the institutions, which oftentimes, as you just explored, shape the constraints of art or activism in general. What are some anecdotes or some of your own personal experiences in making transnational connections, in making art across borders? And in this case, also like crossing the EU border, the Schengen border, and so forth.
How much time do you have? No, just kidding. I mean, there's a lot. Yeah, I don't know. I've been abroad for 10 years, and yeah, there's a lot. But and I can maybe tell one anecdote now in the context of the Danube, because the piece that I wrote, the part one of I Thought God Can Be Found in the Danube, I used a part from a documentary movie that was filmed in Bosnia. So it's not the Danube, but it's one of the tributaries of the Danube. And it's a documentary where one person, actually it's two people in a little boat on the river, and they are counting the number of fridges that are floating at that moment on the Danube. And I used the audio from this documentary in my orchestra piece. So, and then I also kind of reworked the counting in my piece. So when they count 1 fridge, 2 fridges, 3 fridges, 4. And the thing is that we premiered this piece in Graz last year, and a lot of people came after. You know, it's mostly Austrian audience, and they came to me and they said, "Wow, that is so insane! What is happening in Bosnia? It's like so crazy with the waste." And the commentary was actually very based on this of this small extract from the audio. And my hope with writing this piece was actually also to realize that this Danube is in front of us, because, you know, in Austria, the Danube flows, like it goes from Passau and it goes to Linz and it goes to Vienna. It's like the two main, basically, cities in Austria. And the trash kind of follows. So the fact that it lands in Bosnia has is just one of the side effects. So yeah, this is one of the things that, and I got a lot of these comments of people saying, commenting on the state of Bosnia and not even raising questions about how the state is in Austria, and actually what part of this trash is actually coming from here and going down the stream, you know, and stuff like that. So yeah.
Any other questions?
I hope I answered your question. Sorry.
Go on, Julia. Go ahead.
You, Sonia, I think you raised your hand before
Yeah,
me.
I'm fine. I'm fine. I talk too much. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, you don't. No, it's okay. Sorry for not being able to see me. I'm not presentable currently, so apologies. Thank you, Sarah. This is very informative. I come from philosophy, so it's always nice to hear other perspectives, especially art, which I love. I wanted to ask, and I apologize if you've mentioned it in your talk or in questions. My connection is kind of slow, so you got kind of cut off at moments. I wanted to ask if you think that the current curriculum in schools in our regions is sufficiently covering art and art topics. For example, in high school, I think that it's only covered in grammar school, like gymnasia, right? And in vocational schools, not so much, unless they're focused precisely on art. And are there some concrete, I don't know, policies or activities that you think could be useful to get the children more interested in art or something? Thank you.
Alexandra, did you want to say something?
On primary school, I can give some more insights that I can. I mean, I went to school in Slovenia, but now, you know, I have a family in Austria, and like where all this appreciation of art and culture comes from. But, you know, you have to it starts from the kindergarten. I mean, they bring kids to museums, they go to concerts, and this is something that is so really engraved in this culture, I think, in Austria, that that it's missing somehow in other maybe countries, that you really have to kind of raise this, how to say, attitude and relation to art and understanding and appreciation. And it really starts from the kindergarten on. And also when you see curriculum, my son went to first grade, and then you see music as subject. It's from the first grade on, and their engagement, how important it is also to sing and all these activities. And this, I think, it's really, I think, in Austrian case, which I really admire, how they position culture and arts at the center, or, you know, also in the foreign policy, also one of the, you know, main pillars. And this is, I think, something that is very different from the understanding, even from, you know, in Slovenia, where art is still seen as like a little cherry on a cake. It's just something in addition, but not like really how to say, part of the society and really support it. And because also I can say for Slovenia, it's also, we still, I think, in comparison to Austria, it's still, I mean, funds are insufficient. And when I have, sometimes I also work as an artist, and when I have a commission in Slovenia, Austria is supporting my commission in Slovenia, because the fee I would get as an artist in Slovenia is just so little that sometimes I ask myself, do I want to even create art for such a, low fee? That, I don't know. I also feel like there's also respect towards an artist. And also this art needs to be, art should be respected, and also in that sense, also properly funded. That we are not something just doing for our hobbies, so it's a profession. So yeah, I'm sorry that I kind of interrupted, but yeah, I think it starts already in a curriculum, already in a primary school, and that kind of really it just position art in a different framework as perhaps in other in comparison to Slovenia, and probably also in other and Southeast European countries.
Yeah, well, I actually do not know. I mean, I grew up in suburbs of Belgrade, and I think that also makes a big difference. Like the schools in like countryside are also very different to schools in bigger cities, because for me, my music or like painting classes were like, you go out for a walk. No, I don't know. Like you learn for the next class, which is like biology. So I'm really not sure how it is actually. But one thing that I can say about my education in Serbia is that what I find it's a shame, and also I see a big difference in this aspect to Austria or to Germany, is that I feel in Serbia, if kid says that they want to play a guitar or play a piano, it means that they want to be a professional pianist, and then they're pushed to like this kind of a career choice. And there is very little understanding that kids can do this just for pure fun, just for their pure education and for their development. And they do not have to be a professional pianist their whole life. I think this is very important. And actually not, I mean, for music, obviously, because I come from that world, but it can be any art discipline. So no putting pressure on kids. Yeah, just letting them enjoy the art. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Now I'm interpelled to react, because the fact that Aleksandra is part of our cohort of fellows, and then you as a guest, is such a privilege. And I'll start maybe from the thing that different cultural politics are depending on various factors in the society. And Vienna is inherited actually this arty and cultural wealth that now, even in these times of polycrisis, still can profit, or people can profit from it. What we have in the region, and now I'm not even going to specify which countries, but we all know, think of arts in Ukraine nowadays, think of arts in any endangered, in Palestine nowadays. Well, arts is still creating things, even in these life-threatening situations. What is it that I want to say now? It's not a creating art, creating meaning in life. You said playing a guitar or piano or flute, it's fun. Well, for me, was creating meaning in life early at the early age. Content, creating content and practice that will discipline me for further and other thanks, and I'm not professional musician or anyone in that field. This creating meaning processes depend a lot on the environment and on what we inherited through this colonial past. And also the fact that arts is not the thing of privileged ones. It's not privilege. It's not the thing that you need to be rich and wealthy. It's not the thing that you need to have family who's going to support you. It's not that understanding of art that is debilitating the very notion, what does it mean to be in arts? What does it mean to create? And what Aleksandra is doing, and really I find it extremely important together with you, Sara, I was not joking. I really thought that you might come out with what you are the best, which is making us hear something. And through this language, represent what you are doing. So we need to get out of these box of 19th century understanding of arts for certain classes, for certain levels of education, for those who are privileged to consume art as a leisure, as a cultivating themselves, etc. Which brings me to what you said about this eco-trend engaging in arts that will show that being in arts is also being engaged in everyday life. Whatever you're touching with your talent, with your practice, with what you have or produced, all of us can benefit, starting with the babies and children in toddlers and then growing up, entering every sphere of life. So this is it. What I want to just explicit now with your dialogue is that the world needs to come to artists. It's not that artists should feel, do I belong to the world? Am I at the right spot? Am I going to be heard? No, speak up and then shout if needed that art is necessary for survival. I really find it necessary for survival. So thank you very much.
I agree. I agree. Even though I also have to say that I also feel that there is a bit that artists still can do, and I feel that sometimes it can feel that the artists themselves have a kind of this elitist status that I'm not a big fan of, and that can be also very discouraging for everyone else. So I think it's kind of a two-way street. So yeah, to find
exactly because this is the question of talent. When we say, oh, someone is gifted, what does it mean? Someone as a child had the environment encouraging certain traits of someone's behavior to technically advance either an instrument or a voice as an instrument or performing, etc., etc. So gift or gifted, being talented is just one tiny bit what is there. And we need to have the environment to help us grow. So the change should be from the start. And then arts, it's 90% work, hard work, hard practice. So even though people think, oh, elite. Well, you become elite because if you are disciplined to practice, like sports, the high level sports, like high level of everything, you are a soldier in very good meaning of this word, which means ethically and through training encompassing an expertise of what you are doing for yourself and for others. So yes, it's definitely necessary, and we need to break those boundaries, generational boundaries and elitist boundaries. Like, yes, this belongs only for privileged or for those circles that are trained, etc., etc. Especially in contemporary music, especially in any contemporary innovative experimental artistic practices. Art that does not communicate directly, that is not popular. What does it mean to be popular? What is it? To please what? The lowest level of what we have as humans? No. So
Yes, I often get this question as a composer, when you do a creative practice, like how do you get motivation or where do you look for? And then I often make this like a sarcastic joke. I said, yeah, a muse contacted me, sent me a sign. No, I sat at the desk and I started working, and I worked until I got something. So yeah, it's just work. There's no magic in it.
absolutely. And this is the most important part of the work, what we understand as a work. Making difference between work and labor, etc., etc. But this is also something that is the prejudice and stereotype.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, Sibjan, please.
Sorry, yeah.
Thank you so much both for Aleksandra for inviting Sara, and Sara for sharing your personal story and your activism around that, because I'm coming professionally from environment and health, so basically the things that you've been sharing are quite close to me. But however, it was really nice to listening from the story about the environment from the different context. And one of the things that you have shared with us is that I just love the way that you use the art to expose the truth about the society. And you've been kind of a very strong messenger, like, to the society, and just saying, like, this is the truth that we are faced with. And especially with this project about Danube, because you were saying that the waste is actually traveling throughout the countries, and actually you're telling the story, like, what we are faced with what is the problem that we are faced today. And I love just another perspective of, like, as you also mentioned, like, interpretation versus impact. You have mentioned, like, the indicators and the percentages, which is not really important, like, when it comes to the human experience. And I like that perspective, because I'm quite sure that maybe even it's scientific proven that that the art is quite closer to our heart than the policy paper. So basically, using your talent and your knowledge around these critical issues that we are faced could be very nice. Like storytelling, how we can also solve the problem. It's not always about this raising the awareness, but also bringing the solutions. And as a strong advocate, as an artist, I mean, absolutely, your colleagues and you all are. I think that you should. You deserve just a better place in a society, and much more important as a not only the advocate, as you need to advocate for something, but really send a strong message to the communities and saying, like, how we should, just understand our environment and how we should appreciate, the things that we already have. And one of the most, I guess, beautiful quotes that I have heard from you basically is that that you are not, like, talking about the future because there is no, like, it was, like, hard for you to connect for the future because there is no, like, reference point in the future you can become familiar with, which is also for me very important, because you're really living in the presence and seeing, like, what is going on and how we need to communicate all that for the future. And as someone who is spending a lot of time in the policy arena, what I see and what is the biggest challenge is that we hardly can actually integrate the human story, the needs of society into the policy framework in the decision making. So basically we have those laws and policy frameworks created without asking the communities and people, doing the outreach and asking them, like, how do you feel? What do you need? We're just having this bunch of people, like politicians, sitting all together and saying, like, we know the best, we're going to do this and this that way, having zero knowledge about like what those especially vulnerable communities are faced with. So I really appreciate the time listening to this. I learned a lot, actually, and it just give me another perspective of my work. And thank you both so much about bringing all that together.
Great, thank you so much. I'm so happy to hear that.
We should listen to your music, Sara. Please do let us know when you when you have some concert or anything, or you can even let us hear now some work in progress. Or
should I, Aleksandra? Do I have your permission to? Okay.
Just introduce us to what we are going to hear.
Yeah, of course. I will do that. So I will play you a short part from my piece, I Thought God Can Be Found in the Danube. So it's an orchestra piece. It was performed by the Radio Symphony Orchestra Vienna last year. And the title is obviously because, in Austria, there is a lot of this kind of celebrating the Danube, the famous beast, the famous waltz, and the schönen blauen Donau, it's called, on the beautiful blue Danube. And then in my piece, I asked, where's this blueness? The Danube is not blue anymore. Like, what are you talking about? Are you seeing something I'm not seeing? So exactly, that's why I called it, I Thought God Can Be Found in the Danube. God in a sense of like, it's not a religious piece, but God in a sense of like, kind of a resolution or whatever it is. So I'm gonna play you the third part, and this part, so it starts at, wait, I have to calculate, 5:45, okay. So in this part, actually, I took an existing piece about the Danube, and again, it was a piece celebrating, it's not the waltz, it's another one, but again, celebrating the beauty of the Danube, also quoting a lot of poetry written about the Danube, where people are kind of jumping in the Danube to find the solution to all of their life problems in this beautiful water. So I kind of took this piece and I rewrote it, that it sounds a bit like how the Danube today actually is. So yeah, I will play you that. I have to share my screen, sorry, so that you can hear it better. So it's just like 2-3 minutes, is that okay? Sorry, it's a bit later, that part. Yeah, so just to give you some context, basically in the first part, we counted the fridges in the Danube, no? So this is kind of like what the broken Danube sounds like. And so basically I asked, for example, the whole brass section to hold plastic in front of their instruments. So what they're playing actually sounds completely off tune, and they hated it because obviously they're the Radio Symphonic Orchestra of Vienna. They want to play perfectly on tune, and then they had to do this where it sounds completely broken, and they hated me for it. But I mean, that's what the Danube sounds like at the moment. So that's what they were supposed to do. So that's why it sounds this way, exactly.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing. This was extraordinary. And it was very joyful, even though it's, well, smirky and Danube is polluted, but still, we hear you. You like water, and it's extraordinary. Thank you very much for sharing it.
Thank you all for your attention, for being here.
Aleksandra, so if you agree, you can close it.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
There are no more questions because I also can't really have the overview. But yeah, okay. So thank you everyone for being here. And also thank you again, Sarah, really for your, as I said, all your inputs and also your music. It was really great to have you in the seminar. So, and I'm going to continue talking to you later on. So thank you so much. And yeah, I wish everyone a wonderful afternoon and we see each other very soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. And thank you all for your great work.
It was extraordinary, Sarah. Go on, continue. It's wonderful. And you're most welcome to join us in Rijeka.
Thank you. Thank you. I would love that. Bye. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.